Welcome to the Common Humanity Podcast, where we are here to have real human conversations. Today, I am joined again by Jazz. We continued talking after our last recording, and we were like, you know what we should do? We should do another podcast because this is some good shit. So with that being said, Jazz, tell us once again, who are you?
I am Jasmine Monchecki. Newly, I used to be Jasmine Bellin. I am a mom now. It's still 3 months in the making. Um, and a wife. Not so good at that one. Um, and a teacher most days. And yeah, just a general observer of life. And I have a lot to say because I have a lot of opinions.
Yeah, that's good. We like opinions. So I'm gonna dive right in. Jasmine, who is your favorite celebrity?
um, it's probably Mark Wahlberg. Uh, I've had a crush on him since I was like 5, and he seems like a good dude. I mean, which is actually kind of funny because if you do any research on him, like he's done some bad shit.
Yeah, we all
But
have.
yeah, but for the most part, he's like pretty good dude. And so, I mean, it's mostly just visually, he is my favorite to look at still to this day. Like, I mean, even though he's like older and looks different than he did in his Calvin Klein commercial. That's my dude too.
Nice. So one of the things we started talking about a couple weeks ago, whenever it was this obsession that I don't know if it's I can only say it from an American's point of view because I've never been anything but American, but this obsession that Americans have with celebrities and famous people and athletes and people who will just go, whether it's they have a lot of money or they have a lot of influence, or both. But in my opinion, oftentimes lack um, human qualities, at least in the public eye. And we are obsessed with them,
Grossly obsessed.
grossly obsessed with them. So, how does that make you feel?
It infuriates me on a whole nother level. And every year, like for as a teacher, I do a writing prompt about like write about somebody who inspires you.
Mm-hmm.
And every year, like a majority of my class, they're all celebrities. And I'm like, no, bitch, write about your mom. Like,
Yeah.
write about an uncle, write about like, even if it was somebody famous who's like Malala, like she was awesome. Or I mean, she's still alive, but like somebody like that. But it's always an athlete, a movie star. And I tell them right away, I say, you may not write about a Kardashian. You will not pass this paper if you write about a Kardashian, because if that is somebody you follow, then we need to do a whole lesson on like what an idol actually is. So, I forgot where I was going with that. Oh yeah, it infuriates me. It makes me passionately upset.
So, what is it? Because I mean, it's not that, yeah, it's obviously not that celebrities aren't people. It's not that they're not human. It's not that they don't have the same human experience as the rest of us, but probably much more privately. I mean, our lives are pretty private because nobody gives a shit.
Compared to theirs, yeah.
um, but to me, it's so there's multiple pieces to this, but to me, it's the influence that they have and how they use it because
Mhm.
they know, like, you can't make millions of dollars and have millions of followers and all of that and not know that people are going to follow you word for word.
Mhm.
You know that if you say jump, someone's going to jump. And it might not be everybody, but it can definitely be enough to, like, I don't know, incite a riot.
Mhm.
um,
It I think when I first started noticing how much it pissed me off was like when I think it was when Justin Bieber and Haley started like dating or whatever, and
Mhm.
like Selena fans were giving death threats, or like something with Taylor Swift. I hate Taylor Swift, by the way. I passionately hate Taylor Swift
Okay,
because
I'm
of
gonna
a real,
know why,
okay,
but
so
if you
real
tangent whichever direction.
real life altercation, not altercation, but so when she like first started, she had this like big, beautiful blonde hair, and she was like America's sweetheart. Everybody loved her. Little girls like fell over for her. It was cute, right? And for the most part, like you're like, you know what? She seems like a pretty good person to look up to, I guess. I don't know what she was doing, but um she came to Frontier Days, and she came with like Rascal Flats, I think. And I don't know if you know this, my dad, he's pretty well involved with
Yeah.
Frontier Days. Like he signs all the acts and whatever. And so I was there, and she had just got there, and this little older man who like does security, he like went up to her and he was like, hey, it's kind of cool for me. I was like security at your very first show, so to see how you've like grown, and it's a pretty big deal, it's pretty awesome. And she was like, oh. And like I think it was because he was old that it like extra pushed my buttons. But I was like, that was just kind of a weird response. Like, most celebrities like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. So not 3 minutes later, some little girls were like around, and she was like, do you guys want to come on my bus? And like had this like big happy like, come join me, I'm gonna be so sweet, America's sweetheart. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, she's just so kind. And I'm like, she's fucking bitch. Like this little old, and he wasn't like, oh my god, Taylor, oh my god, Taylor, like these girls were. He was just like, hey, this is kind of cool. And she just was such a bitch to him. And so like I still went to the concert, but I was like, that's kind of messed up. And then from there I was like, okay, now I hate your songs because they're all the same.
Yeah, uh I was never a fan of the music. I think there's like maybe three or four of her songs that I like. But I would say that was still early on in her career. So she was probably still very much a teenager. She was
Mm.
also very much being controlled by her like label and all that. So I'm willing to bet that she is a I mean, she is definitely a different person now than she was then. But I'm willing to bet that she wouldn't have the same interaction because she went through her like through a villain era and is in her redemption arc now because like she disappeared for a while because she realized like being famous will fuck you up, which I think
Well, then I will have to re-talk to her and
yeah,
see.
you call her up.
I'll see if I can change my opinion. It has stuck with me for years. And then, like I said, like after that, I just kind of stopped liking her songs
Yeah.
anyway, because they like just kind of seemed like the same song to me with different beats or whatever. I was like, okay, now I just hate you, but
Which is
not as much as I
funny.
hate
Like
him.
we're talking about like people idolizing people, but then you also are letting T Swift live rent free in your head.
Oh yeah. No. And here's the thing I always tell people, like, oh my God, I hate people's obsession with celebrities. And I was like, I'm guilty of it too. Like, I passionately hate Kim Kardashian. Like, I hate Taylor Swift. I adore Mark Wahlberg. Like, I do it too. But like
Yeah.
when I sit back and think about it, I'm like, God, this is gross of all of us.
I can't think of who. I am not one of those people. I'm not like there are people who, I mean, growing up, I was obsessed with John Bon Jovi because he's John Bon Jovi.
Because John Bon Jovi.
And like to this day, I still think he's a good dude. Um, and like that's probably the closest I've ever been to fangirling when I went to his first concert, and I was like,
Mhm.
yay. But like anytime I've met a famous person in real life, I'm like, hey, what's up? Like, you seem pretty cool.
Mhm.
My favorite celebrity encounter was I worked at Target in Bozeman, and oh my God, I'm gonna forget his name. Mm, come on, brain.
See, you're my type of people. You like you knew they were famous, but it's not like
Well, that's the thing. I knew they were famous. Oh, Dennis Quaid. So I'm like working electronics. These two kids come in with just like bags full of quarters, and their dad was like, "Okay, you've been saving up all year. You can buy whatever you want with them." And I was just like, "Ooh, ooh, ooh, let me do this transaction because I love counting change. Like I've always wanted to work at a bank just so I can count change." Whatever. Um,
there.
but so I'm like, do. And then like afterwards I go on my break. And I was just like, it was so funny. Like I literally said to the guy, I was like, "Hey, you look like that guy who was in Parent Trap." And he was just like, "Yeah, I get that a lot." And I was just like, do. And I go on my break and I'm like sitting there reading my book, eating my ramen, and someone's like, "Guess Dennis Quaid is here." I was like, "Oh shit, that was the guy from the Parent Trap." Like, hey, that's cool. And then like come to find out he has like a ranch in Livingston. So like he's in Bozeman all the time. And I'm like, "Oh, that makes sense." So is Johnny Depp, which I never got to run into Johnny Depp, which is a bummer because I love him and would love to just be like, "You, amazing." But I've also heard he's a douche in person, which sucks from some of my friends who have run into him.
Damn.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, no, like we as a culture are obsessed. And I don't know if it's like there's the sometimes when it's I feel like it's because people are like, "Oh, I want to be that."
Mhm.
But then there's times where like it's not like, "Hey, I'm trying to become what this person is," but it is just like blind following. Is
Mhm.
like
We know nothing about these people. I mean,
right.
we know they're the public image. We
Mhm.
know, oh, they donated to this charity because you're told that they donated to this charity and you like connect them with characters they play or, an athlete like, wow, they're really good. So you connect all that with like them being great people.
Right.
But we know nothing about like the second that the TV turns off, we don't know that. And I mean, remember a couple years ago when all the like Ellen DeGeneres stuff came out, and you're like, how could this woman who gives all this money to these people and finds these like beautiful stories of people being kind to each other and she supports like be kind, like how could anything negative come out about her? And then it just becomes this like obsession with people trying to figure it out. And it's weird.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, like, on the human aspect of things, we're all assholes.
Absolutely.
And so it's unfair to look at a celebrity and say, "Hey, you have to be perfect and you have to be a nice person to everyone all the time." But at the same time, they have more power because they have more influence. And the more power you have, the more responsibility you have to carry to, which is a lot of stress. I'm sure it's a lot to handle, but that is what you take on being in the limelight. Like if you, um, I mean, I have friends who are like, "I want to be famous. I want to be like public figure, all of this." And I'm just like, "No." Like I I don't want to do that. Like I want to have conversations with people for forever, but I don't like it's one of the hardest things like trying to run a business because as an entrepreneur, like you are your business
Mhm.
and everything you do comes back on it. It doesn't matter if you are like if you're not on the clock, if somebody sees you and you do something not great, it comes back. And I think it has a greater impact on normal people, and less on celebrities because you've seen it time and time again. I mean, how many NFL stars have been caught and tried for domestic abuse, but still get to make millions of dollars playing football. Because at the end of the day, there's less repercussions for people who have the ability to pay, which is just a fucked up aspect of our society. I mean, look at Twitter. just
Twitter.
So do you know what happened with Twitter this week?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so Elon Musk bought Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then he decided, because he was sick of how Twitter was being run and thinks everybody should have free speech, quotes there, said that to get a verified check mark, it was going to cost $8 a month. So you just had to pay for your verified check. And a bunch of people made Elon Musk accounts and got verified because they paid $8. It was like, if you are going to impersonate people, you have to say that it's a parody account, because then like it looks like, you know, Elon Musk is saying things and he's not. So then he's pissed. But there's been a whole ton of them. The company, I think Eli Lilly maybe is the company who makes insulin and charges a fucking ridiculous amount for a life-saving drug that was intended to save people's lives and be sold for $1. Anyway, somebody made an account of theirs and said, guess what? We met with the board. Insulin is now free. You guys have life-saving drugs. And then they had to make a different account and be like, this was a fake account. This is not true. And their stocks plummeted, which on the one hand, this could be fucking terrible for our economy and the stock market and all sorts of fun stuff like that. Chiquita Banana was like, hey, good news, guys, we overthrew the government. And then another Chiquita Banana was just like, that is a fake account. We have not overthrown the government since 1954. Don't let them fool you. So there's just like a bunch of this shit happening where like, so it's giving the public the ability to impersonate anybody they want to. And then people have to decipher if it's real or not, which is the scary part, because
not everybody uses their brains.
Yes. Yeah. But there's been some funny ones and some like slightly scary ones. But it's just funny. And now, so it's now been shut off that you can pay for verification, because like, side note, I think like Tinder has better verification than any social media, that you are a real person and you are who you say you are.
Good for Tinder.
Like you have to, I think it's Tinder, I don't know, but there's one where you like have to take pictures of your face from various angles, and then they like make sure that that's the same face in your pictures, and they're like, okay, you're a real person.
That's fantastic.
I'm sure there's ways to overcome that with technology, but still
makes it harder.
I learned that from my 2 weeks on Tinder. Never again.
I hear that a lot from my friends. Like, no, not doing that.
Yeah, my friends like not forced me, but did a lot of convincing. And then I was just like, no, this is awful. This is the worst decision I've ever made in my entire life. Yeah. Anyway, so let's turn this conversation a little bit. I love sports. You love sports. So these are things that are common between us. But so you are a full-time teacher. I'm a substitute teacher, so I'm just the glorified babysitter.
I mean, me too.
Just yeah, you have to do more planning. And like we have the responsibility of forming the next generation, how they think, how they like what they know, how they learn how to learn. how they can decipher things in the world and use their brains to figure shit out. Like, we're responsible for teaching hundreds of kids to do that. It's a huge responsibility. Without teachers, society would crumble, because
Yes.
like, I think every parent, maybe not every parent, but like most parents who, when COVID hit and they had to teach their kids from home, they were like, I could not do this. I can't do this with my kid. Why would I do this with a classroom of 26 children? Like, this seems fucking ridiculous. And they didn't do the planning, and they didn't like people finally got to look into like, holy shit, this is hard. What would you say roughly compared to, we'll go the lowest paid sport. I think it's the lowest paid sport in like major leagues. How would you compare your salary to like a baseball player?
Mm. Ugh. Does that count as an answer? Ugh.
Yes, it does.
Um, it's like I think I've used this word like 7 times. It's gross.
Yeah.
And you said the world would crumble, and I mean, you cannot name a single sport or that somehow you couldn't say like you needed a teacher to get you there.
Right.
And I am not saying that like this is not a teachers need paid more type thing. It is just back to like my obsession with celebrities is that we pay them these ridiculous amounts of money, and then teachers are not making a lot. And but you no athlete, no celebrity could be where they were if it weren't for at least like up to like a 6th grade.
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't be able to do their jobs. Yeah, the salary, like it just shows you more like what Americans care more about.
Right.
And even teachers, like teachers are these same people who are just like obsessed with these celebrities. And I'm like, look at your salary compared to theirs. It's gross. It's terrifying. It's sad.
Yeah. And what, like, so it seems to me, as Americans, things that we think deserve better pay, substantially better pay, are sports. So entertainment in general. If you are willing to be a dancing monkey for us, we'll pay you more than you could. I would say more than you could ever possibly spend. But then there's also stories of these people going into bankruptcy because studies show that the more you have, the more you spend. And it's very difficult, even if you are the most like self-aware human being on the planet, it's very difficult to overcome that, because there's the concept of keeping up with the Joneses or the Kardashians. And like, just, now I'm going to use your word, gross consumerism, right? We just want more. Like, we feel like if we can afford a Lamborghini, we should own a Lamborghini, even if you don't fucking want a Lamborghini.
Right.
Like, I love the handful of rich people in Cheyenne who have Lamborghinis. I'm like, super cool. You can drive that car here for 2-3 months out of the year. And then but I do have a friend who has he got money, and he has 2 garages. He's a car guy, right? He has 2 garages. He calls one the Access and one the Allies, based on where the cars are from. Makes me happy. But his favorite vehicle is like a 1984 Toyota Tacoma, which is what he usually, and like every once in a while, he'll take one of his fancy cars for a drive. But for the most part, he drives around in this beat up old pickup truck. It makes me so happy. But also, like, I'd be like, that guy's a millionaire, and people are like, no, he's not. I'm like, no, trust me, he is. He just doesn't flaunt it because that's not his goal. but no, like it's like when you make more money, it's like you lose whatever sense of um practicality you may have once had. Um which I think is, I mean, I can even say that I've done it, and I've never been rich. I've never been like above the, like my kids have been on free and reduced lunch their entire existence. Let's put it that way. I think the most I've ever made for a couple of months was $35,000.
Mm.
But at that point in my life, I was just like, I can buy workout pants because I want to. What?
What?
And then I quit my job and I was like, oh man, I can't buy workout pants anytime I want to now. Like, because that's my vice. I'm also a personal trainer, so it's I'm always just like, this is a business expense.
Oops.
But yeah, like I don't think anybody is really 100% safe from it because like
Oh, my first year teaching, I lived in a house with two other girls, and like I think my rent was like $250, like
Mhm.
maybe. And then so the rest of my paycheck like was like, what do you want to do? I think my parents were making me pay my car at the time. Yeah, they definitely were. They were like, oh, you got a job, here's your car. But even then, like it was a pretty cheap car, so my car payment was like $100. My phone was $50. So like my bills were like $600 maybe.
Yeah.
And Wyoming teachers get paid pretty well. So I just had all this extra money. And I still kick myself to this day. Like I should have put like not even all of it, but just most of it into savings. And I would have had an awesome down payment on my first house. Like I could have probably like purchased my next car just like cash and didn't have a payment. Like I could have done so much, but I lost my mind. I had money. I could do whatever I wanted with it. And I ate out a lot. I bought clothes that I still have in my closet that I never wore. And they weren't like flashy clothes because I'm not a flashy person, but they were just like, oh, I like these pants. Let me buy them in every color. I look awful in that color. Why would I buy that color? Because I could. I had the money to do it.
Yeah. But yeah. But but again, let's go sports. I love sports. And um but it the sports industry pisses me off.
Mm-hmm.
And this is someone like I ran youth sports for 8 years. I like current business is youth strength and conditioning to help athletes become the strongest athletes they can, because there's like whether you're trying to play D1 or professional ball or whatever, having a strong body is good for you no matter
For
what.
life.
um but it's still like the whole complex, like when people have been arguing that college athletes need to be paid because of how much time they're spending in their sport. And like there's the argument that like they're bringing in lots of money for their universities and they are putting in 40 plus hours a week at their sport on top of school, and so they should be paid for that time. And though I think that argument has some footing, I think the better argument is they are supposed to be student athletes, which means they are supposed to be students first. It is not their fault that our institutions have decided to turn sports into a money-making venture for universities. Universities are supposed to be education. They are not supposed to be entertainment. They are not supposed to be like sports are still supposed to be there as
An extracurricular activity.
right, extracurricular. So it is not that we need to pay them to do that as a full-time job. It is that there should be less expectations for them to be in sport, because that is not why they're going to college. And then you see stories of kids who they got their full ride, but they weren't able to actually take classes and get shit done while they were in college because they had to spend so much time in football. And we'll just go football for most of them because that's the biggest one. But then they have to go back and pay for their degree all over again after their 4 years playing, but they don't have the income to do that because they've already spent 4 years in college, and it actually puts them behind because 1% of high school athletes will play college sports. 1% of that 1% will make it to a professional level. And like, we talk to kids all the time about, and like, I think there's like this side where it's like we're trying to motivate them, like, you could be the next LeBron James, you could be like whatever. And it's not to say that these athletes didn't work their asses off to get to where they are, but if you sell it to every athlete that you could be the next big professional athlete, and that's the only thing that they focus on, like, people are much more than that. And, you get a handful of professional athletes who know that. Like, I like to focus on a little hometown hero. God, now I just forgot his name too.
Brandon Nimmo.
Yeah. No, I was
Big fan of him.
but like, he worked his ass off. Like, in high school, he was just like, these are my goals, this is what I want to do. But he was also like a really good student. He very much worked to get to where he is.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the aspect of like, you have to be good at what you do. Like, there are people who can work their ass off and still trip over their own feet, which is going to make it much more difficult to be a professional athlete if you don't have the coordination to do so. But yeah, it's like, you can still be human and do it for sure. And I feel like that's how most people, when they have like someone from their hometown make it big, they probably all, well, maybe not all feel the same, because when you got big cities churning out lots of athletes every year, you might not know all of them as intimately as when they're from Wyoming. But yeah, I just think it's like insane how much is expected of college athletes, but it's only expected of them because they're trying to make money off of them. And then here's my big fucking rant. Like, this is a personal rant, by the way. A portion of my tuition when I went to college went to the football program. I did not play football. I went to a D2 school. They're not D1. They're not like, and my mom's like, oh, they're doing much better now, whatever. I'm like, still, nobody cares. Nobody cares about the MSU Bobcats. Have you heard of the MSU Bobcats?
Well, yeah, because I know somebody who went there.
Oh, well, okay. But like,
on a basketball scholarship.
oh, there you go. But like, if you don't live in Montana or around there, you don't give a flying fuck. So why is it that me, who went to school for architecture, had to pay part of my tuition to support the building of a new football stadium so that they could bring in more money with the football program? Now, mind you, my university also, in the time I was there, like they're a fantastic research facility, like churn out some of the like best organic chemists in the country. They put a rover on Mars. They built and launched into space, but nothing in my tuition said, hey, we're like, you're helping pay for this program by being here. It's just like, your money is going to the sports facility. And I'm just like, a sports facility that a very small fraction of students get to use.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to pay for it. Why? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And so then when they call me and they're like, you want to donate money for scholarships for people? I'm like, no, fuck off. Absolutely not. Like, I know I've seen how you spend your money, and that is not going to a person. And and then that's a small school. Imagine what it's like at like Duke. How many, like, what percentage of their tuition of someone who's just trying to get a fucking degree so that they can get paid a little bit better so that they can live their dreams or whatever, doing regular people things, and they're paying for a handful of athletes to have better facilities or to help pay for their books so that the system can use them to make money. And it's disgusting. I love sports. I hate
sports.
And then like professional sports, people are always like, well, what teams do you follow? I don't. Because I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I like people who are like, oh man, my team's playing this weekend, we're gonna do so good. You are not part of the team. You're not part of the team. It doesn't matter how much memorabilia you purchase. You're not part of the team. You have no matter how many times I've screamed at the television, none of those coaches have actually listened to me in their headset when I tell them what plays to call,
mm-hmm.
which is a shame, because I think I could have won a few games if they just listened to me. But I've had times like I recognized probably somewhere in college where I was like, this is too much energy. I don't have the energy to care about this. There are individual players that I'm like, hey, that seems like they seem like a good dude and I like what they do. And they're like, so I don't even follow them, but like when their names come up, I'm like, oh yeah, that guy. But my ex-husband at one point told me, like, you have to choose a team. You have to back somebody. I was like, why? Why can't I just enjoy watching? Because I like the sport. I don't care who wins. Who wins and who loses does not affect me at all. The only people who have been like, who I want to lose? The Broncos, because I still hold a grudge that I developed in elementary school that wasn't even my grudge against John Elway for whatever reason. And it has not left my brain. And I'm just like, nope, screw the Broncos, which is great because, live in Bronco country. But
no, my irritation, and like, I've always had an irritation, but like this year, I don't know why all of a sudden. Oh, it was because my maternity leave really opened up my eyes as to like, just, it's not just teachers, because the nurses at my hospital, theirs is worse. But so my maternity leave, my first 6 weeks were paid for. And by that, I mean, they used all my sick days I had saved up. And then because I didn't have enough, they like docked me 2 days of pay, and then they covered the rest. And by the rest, they paid for 1 day because I had enough sick days to like get me to my almost whole thing. And then after that, I took, and I knew it was unpaid, but I took unpaid for another month and a half so I could, spend some time with my kid. And so when I started back at school on October 24th, I have 0 sick days. So every hour that I take off until I think we get out of school like May 26th or something, I do not get paid. And part of that, I was like, like makes sense. Like, if I'm not working, yeah, I know you don't get paid. And then the other part of it is like, that's fucked up. Like, I was gone because I was having a baby, and now you expect me for the next 6 months of school to not take a single day off for me or for her. So then I think somebody got hurt in a football game, and season ending injury. And I was like, sweet gig, you get to not have to play and you are going to get paid for the rest of the year. And I was like, that's bullshit. Because when I don't show up to do my job for the rest of this year, I get not only not paid, they take money away from me.
Yeah.
And so then I just like went down this rabbit hole of like how much we pay them in general is gross. And then how they, for the most part, like I know I don't understand their contracts fully. If they can't play, I'm sure there's something in there that says like, we're not going to pay you your $8 billion contract if your like career ending injury is in the first year. Like, I'm sure there's something in there, but like, for the most part, like, these people are getting paid this ridiculous amount of money and sometimes don't even do their job because of something, like an injury. That's fine. But it makes me so mad how people have found a way to do that. It's fine. We will have money. We'll keep paying you. But then for the people who are getting those people to where they are, teachers and coaches and whatever, like, we're not getting paid anything. And so then I like try to do math, and I'm not great at math. So I always make things easy numbers.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? A stadium charges, I'll just say $100 a ticket. It's more.
That is
$100.
hardcore.
But $100 is easy for me to picture.
Okay.
And, I like looked up a stadium. So I did this on Thursday because it was a very boring football game. And so I like looked up the stadium and how many seats they had. And so I was like, $100 per seat. They made like $7 million just off of people buying $100 tickets.
Yeah.
So then I was like, holy shit, like, that's a lot of money. So then I was like, okay, we'll say that they gave the visiting team just a quarter of that. So then it was like 1.5 million that team got to take home. And then I was like, okay, divide that amongst 50 players and, some coaches, and I don't even know how many people are involved in a football game. So even I was like, okay, divide that amongst 100 people who were involved with this game. And they still got $15,000. Each person could get $15,000 for that one game. And I was like, you know what? That makes me less pissed off because that was just billed off of what they earned. Does that make sense? Instead of just like, we're going to pay you $1 million because we think you're good and we want to keep you and we want to make you happy. And they're like, no, I deserve $2 million. Like, at least this one, they took the profits, they divided it, and you got paid what you earned, I guess.
Yeah.
That made me less pissed off. I mean, the $100 ticket makes me mad, but even that's not even what they actually cost.
Let's say there are some seats that cost thousands of dollars.
So yeah. So just that scenario, I'm like, that's doable. I'm less pissy. But just going into a season and being like, we're going to pay you this much. It doesn't matter if you fucking suck, if we're going to win games. It doesn't matter because we want to pay you this much, and people are going to pay for the tickets, and people are going to buy your jerseys, and people are going to just worship the ground you walk on, and we're somehow going to make that money for you. But a teacher shows up every day, doesn't take a sick day for 6 months because she can't. And like, I spent the last 2.5 months not paid because I didn't show up. It makes me angry.
Yeah. And I think, high school coaches get paid a little bit more than like junior high and elementary coaches, but most coaches get like a couple $1,000 stipend for a season.
Mhm.
And they're, like you said, like none of these athletes get to that level without the coaches that got them there. And
Mhm.
those coaches are not making, I mean, they're not making buku bucks. At least, I mean, and granted, this is the perspective of small town Wyoming. I'm sure in Texas, football coaches get paid more than our football coaches do here. I'm sure that's a thing. But then they also, you get paid differently depending on what sport you're coaching,
Mhm.
because some sports bring in more money than other sports, which is, it is, I don't know,
In my
capitalism at its
my
finest.
in my opinion, like some sports make more than others because of their interest level, whatever. Like that makes sense. It sucks for some sports, but like it makes sense. Like some people just have a higher interest in it. And you can't force people to be interested in something.
True, but I mean, I will never willingly watch golf, but there are plenty of people who pay a lot of money to watch golf.
You want to know why I watch golf? Those announcers crack me up. Because how on earth do you have something to talk about for 4 hours about somebody just hitting a ball towards the hole? But they find a way to talk for the entire tournament, and it is so entertaining to me. Not the actual golf,
Yeah.
the announcers.
Yeah. But I mean, that that argument was the same argument they were using with the women's soccer team as to why they should get paid a ridiculously less amount than the men's soccer team. They're like, well, like, you guys just don't bring in as much money. They're like, right, because you don't pay for us to be on mainstream television. Like, people can't watch our games if we're on ESPN 47.
Mm,
Who has ESPN 47? Who really? Um, I don't think there's that many ESPNs.
there's a lot though.
Yeah, there's a lot. um, but like, it's it's like a false equivalency. They're like, well, you don't bring in as much, but also we don't promote you as much.
Mm,
And it's ridiculous because I am starting to like soccer because my kid plays soccer, but never been a soccer fan. But I would much rather watch women's soccer than men's soccer.
oh, me too. The women's soccer
Every,
team is my favorite.
um, but yeah, like, and I don't think, like, there's the piece where, yeah, there's more interest in it. Like, there's people who don't want to sit and watch a baseball game, but we still have a baseball season that's like 8 months long, and they still play like 4 games a week. They play substantially more than NFL players do,
Mm,
and they still have to do their training and their practices in between, and they get paid substantially less.
mhm.
um and so there's the part that maybe it's because there's less interest in it, or that they don't have as much money to promote it and gouge people for tickets because it's supposed to be the accessible sport.
Mhm.
Football is supposed to be for people who can pay $1,000, because I haven't looked recently, but I looked at one point. One of the reasons I've never been to a professional football game is because like the cheapest seats are a few $100s
Mhm.
for like nosebleed. Like, you can't even see the field from there. You're paying $500 per seat. And that's ridiculous. And it's because they have to pay the players millions of dollars. So they have to make billions of dollars to do that. Um, but it's like chicken and the egg. Did they decide that they were going to make a shit ton of money off of football and then start paying them more? Or did somebody at some point say, you're going to have to pay me a lot more money to put my brain and body on the line every single week? And thus they were like, okay, well, we'll just charge people out the nose for it because they're going to want to see it. Whereas baseball, there are injuries, but like football, people go into that knowing like, hey, I might die at 45 years old from an aneurysm because I've been beating the shit out of my brain for the last 20 years. Like, it doesn't matter what position you play on in football. Like,
You get hit every play.
yeah, and it's dangerous. But people are still like, yeah, let's do it. Like, let's just keep pushing towards, I don't know, it's crazy. But yeah, and then there's hockey, who they're just like, we hit each other for fun. Like, we literally have someone on the team whose job is to get in fistfights.
That was my brother. My brother should hold a Cheyenne record for most time in a penalty box. Keep in mind, he only played till he was like 8. And he probably has that record.
I don't think they allow enforcers at that age.
They didn't allow it. He just took it upon himself.
That makes sense.
And you could tell, even like from the stands, you can't see their face, but you could tell when Trey, he was like, somebody pissed me off, I'm going for him. Like, you would just see him like zone in on this player he was about to take out. It was quite comical.
If I played hockey, that would be my position, because definitely not scoring goals, but I can use my rage against people.
He somehow found a way to score some goals too. He was actually a really good hockey player. He was just an angry man.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's like, it upsets me how much time and effort and money and just brain space we spend on celebrities, and how when they're unhappy, we find a way to make them happy. But, other businesses go on strike, and it's, they don't put as much effort into it. And, I think ultimately I'm more passionate about the like teacher and coach side of things, just because that's who I've been. And
yeah,
I don't get into the teachers don't get paid enough debate a lot, because when I, declared my major, I knew that I wasn't going to get paid a lot. Like it, but it just, you see these stories about so-and-so just signed the biggest contract worth in 20 years and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's gross. Like, it upsets me. And it'll never change. Like, you can't go backwards from here, like, unless they just, like, people, just the entire United States got on board and was like, I'm not going to another fucking game. And then they're like, holy shit, like that would be the only way. So it'll never happen. And teachers will never get paid more. And like, celebrities will never get like less attention. It will never happen. But I just want everybody just one time to be like, wait, why do I idolize this person so much? Or even like with me and Taylor Swift, I don't idolize her, but I hate her. I've never actually, did I meet her? I don't think I actually met her, but like, I've never like, sat down, had a conversation with her. When you actually do decide you dislike somebody, like, it was for a reason.
Yeah.
But like, she's not of consequence to my life. Like, she doesn't affect me. Like, she comes on the radio, I change the song. My Sweet Beautiful Baby, a Taylor Swift song came on, and she started crying, and I was like, raised you right. So no, it's an unfixable problem, but it's there. And
I wouldn't say it's an unfixable problem. I would say improbable, maybe.
Yeah.
Probable, not impossible. But like one of the things, let's talk Kim Kardashian real quick. Yeah, gag. Um, but she's one of those people who fully she understands her influence over people. So she got her Brazilian butt lift or whatever, and then everybody wanted a big butt. And now she's gotten to this point where she's like, well, everybody, like all these people have the body that I paid for, and I don't want to have the same body as everybody else. So she had that removed and then went on this crazy crash diet. So she's super, we'll just call it anorexic, very anorexic. Um, and I've seen posts all over the internet like, is heroin chic back? Like, is thin back in? And so all these people are like, no, you don't have to starve yourself to look like somebody, because that's her whole plan. She just wants to watch every young girl in society be like, oh, I want to look just like her, so I'm going to harm myself the way she harms herself so that I can be like her. And like, I've never met her, I don't actually know this for a fact, but I'm willing to bet that she planned this. And she was like, no, I watched an entire generation of people decide to go to the weight room and do a lot of glute exercises because they wanted a butt that I surgically put in my body. And she got a kick off of that. Like, she got high off of watching people bend to her whim. And so she's doing it again. She's like seeing how far she can pull society with her. And it's disgusting.
Mm. My thing, my thing with the Kardashians, like with Taylor Swift, I'll give her this. Taylor Swift does something for some people. She entertains them. She makes music that they enjoy. I do not understand what the Kardashians have, like what they do for people. Like, yeah, maybe you watch the show and you find it entertaining, but like they're not doing anything for you.
Just entitled rich people, and everybody else wants to be an entitled rich person.
I want to be rich, not entitled.
I want to have a rich life. That's what I want. I don't like, my kids have been like, when are we getting a bigger house? And I'm like, never. There's three of us, there's three bedrooms. Why the fuck do you need a bigger house? Like, we have a great backyard. Like, this is ridiculous. They're like, yeah, but like, we have to get bigger. I'm like, no, if anything, we're gonna downsize. Like,
Yeah.
you go to college, I'm gonna get like a studio. Like, it's gonna be great. But you have to find the pieces of your life that make you love your life. And money can help with that. Money can help you travel and see the world and go experience things that you couldn't if you didn't have money. That's true. But most people, like, if you're making a lot of money, it's because you're spending a lot of time making a lot of money, and you don't really get to spend a lot of time spending that money. So you buy shit. You buy big houses, and then you pay somebody else to clean that house because you don't have the time to do it. Like, that's what people have told me. Like, when they're like, why don't you want a bigger house? I'm like, the bigger house you have, the more house you have to clean. And they're like, that's why you hire a maid. And I'm like, I understand that maids need jobs. Like, they have to work, but no, like, that's not my mentality. My mentality is like, I don't know. But also, I was raised like poor and middle class. And so definitely not.
I want to be rich so I can buy a dog farm and save all the puppies. That's
So
what
if
I
you want to be an entrepreneur and start a dog rescue where you can hire people to save all the puppies.
no, I want to save all the puppies.
Yeah.
It'll just be me and like 100 puppies. And I just be happy. And my daughter, of course. I mean, my husband too. He loves it. But yeah, that's what I would do.
All right, we are going to jump into our cards. Do you want right or left?
Ooh, left.
What are two things you love doing in a group?
Ooh. I love board games. Oh, I love board games. Or like not necessarily board games, but like card games. Like I like games like that. Um this one's weird because I'm not like a big drinker, but I like drinking in a group. Like I just like being
Social.
around. Yeah,
Yeah.
socially. I like that.
All right. Mine is, do you have any recurring or memorable dreams? I did growing up. I had one recurring dream a lot for like 20 years. Um, yeah, I'm gonna tell it to you. So we're gonna share my crazy with everybody. We were in a Kmart because Kmart existed, and like I had to go to the bathroom. I was 5, and I like their bathroom was like in their back room, and you had to walk past this creepy, scary, dark stairwell. And then when I went to the bathroom, like I heard um like my mom scream, and then she was gone, and then my brother went down the stairs to find her, and he screamed and he was gone, and my dad went down the stairs and found him, he screamed, he was gone, and then I was a 5-year-old me standing in the middle of a dark, scary department store back room all alone. And that was my recurring dream. So in case you're wondering, my greatest fear is abandonment.
Wow. Wow.
Yep.
My heart is pounding for you.
I haven't had that dream in like I think like 6 years maybe. I'm pretty great not having that dream. Actually, maybe it's been 10 years because I think I had it like solidly for like 20 years because it started when I was 5 and then would just like whenever I'm stressed, it like loops around. Um, yeah.
I am so sorry.
It's the beauty of having PTSD. You're like the worst part of, maybe not the worst part of existence, but definitely a bad part of existence is your subconscious. And when you're not, that's why when people have PTSD, they don't sleep a lot.
Yeah, to avoid that for sure.
Yup. Okay, your next question. If you could transport us anywhere in the world right now, where would you take us?
Italy, because
Sweet.
that's where I want to go.
Okay. For some
And
good pasta and sunshine.
it is 100% about the pasta. I've always wanted to go to Italy. I think it's beautiful from pictures, but it's the food that I'm like, and I'm a super picky eater, so I'm sure they've got stuff in their food that I'd be like, oh no, but I just want some real authentic Italian pasta. And I married an Italian, and I really thought that I was going somewhere with it, but he makes steak. I love steak, but you're Italian.
Does he have a mom or a grandma who still throws pasta against the wall?
No, his dad is the Italian, and he's a great cook, but he likes the steaks and the meats and the stuff. His grandma apparently used to like make homemade stuff all the time, but she's just like older now, and she lives in Massachusetts, and every time we go to visit her, like, it's just harder for her to make this like meal, and I'm like, I met you too late in life. His brother, though, I hear is a really good cook, and he like makes a lot of stuff, and I see it on Facebook, and he's currently stationed in Germany, but he'll be back stateside. So we're going to visit, and I'm going to get me some real authentic Italian food.
So you married the wrong one then.
I mean, I say that often, but I do love him.
Yeah. I mean, if you put up with his hat collection, you must.
Oh my. He had the nerve to ask me for another one the other day. I was like, you're asking the wrong person.
Oh, this is funny. So my question is far too similar. If you could snap your fingers and be somewhere else right now, where would you be and what would you be looking at?
Um,
Oh, I would be, I don't know if it's like a specific place. I would be in the mountains on a warm summer day. So like in the forest, up at a higher elevation. So like it's hot, but also the air is cool enough because you're in the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
So there's shade. And so you just get to enjoy being one with nature. That's where I would go.
I dig it.
All right. Your last question. What is a dream you have that you haven't achieved yet?
Um, it's actually really funny that you ask me that because the day my daughter was born, I started writing a blog post about what do you do when you've achieved all your dreams. And my last one was becoming a mom. And like I never finished it, mostly because I had a newborn and I was like,
Yeah.
I gotta figure this shit out. Um, I truly have accomplished all of my dreams. Like my ultimate dream was to be a mom, and part of that was I wanted to like be married to somebody just because, you know, my birth father did not stick around, and in my mind it was because not I mean there was a lot of becauses, but I was not going to make a baby with somebody unless I knew that they intended on being with me forever. And like to me that was a ring on my finger and like saying this is my intent. Not that it ever shoot we could get a divorce, who knows, but it was his intent to stay with me forever. um so I wanted to be a mom, I wanted to be a wife, and I have that, and I'm like, I don't know what to do now, because I think we should all have dreams that we're always working towards, and at this point in time like I'm living all of my dreams. Like well, okay, let me backtrack. My dream is to be a stay-at-home mom.
Okay. There you go. That works too. But I will add to that is that you are a wife and you are a mom, but you get to live that dream, and that dream is going to change over time because right now you're the mom of an infant,
Right.
and then you're going to have to be a mom of a toddler, which is going to
Mm,
be a whole another can of worms. And then
heard.
eventually you're going to be a mom of a teenager, which is going to be, you know, slightly hellish, but also sort of fun probably. And then you'll have to learn to be a mom of an adult, and
Mm,
then maybe someday a grandmother
mm,
and all of that. So that dream, though, like the first, like it's like the first step is accomplished,
mm.
but that dream has like a million other steps that
Right.
are going to continuously change. So you have a grand adventure ahead of you.
I'm quite excited for it.
Good.
Except maybe the toddler age. My cousin has a toddler right now, and I'm like, whoo.
Just so you know, it goes like this: terrible twos, trying threes, fucking fours. That's how it goes. Usually when they turn 5, you're like, oh, okay, like you're not so fucking terrible. Because like everyone warns you about the twos, and
Hmm.
then like threes get worse and fours get worse, and you're like, why didn't anybody tell me? So I'm
Right.
all about, like, I tell people when people, I had a friend who had a pregnancy scare at one point, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna be straight up with you. There are beautiful things about pregnancy, but these are the disgusting things that you're gonna have to come to terms with. And she was like, why would you tell me that? And I was just like, because no one else is gonna tell you, and you deserve to know. Like, women deserve to know all of the things that their body is going to go through, and that it's normal, and that you don't have to be like, what is this? Am I dying? No, you're not. This is just biology, and this is how you're meant to be. And somebody probably should have told us this somewhere along the way.
My cousin told me everything, and almost like week by week, she was like, okay, so this is what's going to happen this week, and it's great, or it's beautiful, or it's disgusting, or it's going to hurt. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. It's the miracle of life, but it definitely, yeah. Okay, my last question. When was the last time you did a good deed for someone apart from your partner or family? Um, guess it really depends on how you define good deed. One of my favorite stories, I was working one night at the Lincoln and there was a lady walking through the alley who was bawling and like screaming at people because like they were looking at her like she was crazy because she was just sobbing. And she looked at me and she screamed at me and she was like, "What are you looking at? Like, I don't care if you think I'm crazy." And I was just like, "Are you okay?" And she was just like, "My godfather died today and I'm just having a really rough day." And I was like, "Do you need a hug?" And she was just like, "What?" Like, that would be fantastic. I was like, "Come here. Like, let me give you a hug." Like, you, and it's just, it's not, I mean, it's a small act of kindness, but it's definitely one of my favorite recent stories that I have. So,
Good.
and she didn't shank me. So we're good.
So it turned out great.
Yeah, that's, it's always one of those things like, do you hug people who are walking through an alley screaming or do you not? Like, but yeah.
I didn't run in.
All right. Well, Jasmine, thank you again for joining me and sharing all of your lovely thoughts. This has been another episode of the Common Humanity podcast where we are here to have real human conversations.